be about visual material. This one is looking at what we have for visual material in marketing and consumer behavior, and also how to think about analyzing that. And this was a question that came up earlier. We're not talking about coding words, transcripts. How do we code visual material? And the second one is particularly going to be looking at coding. And coding is a little different for visual material versus text. And so we'll look at that. We'll be looking at some videos that have been produced by marketing people, and we'll also look at how we go about thinking about creating visual material or creating a visual production for our final reports. But when we think about visual in marketing, marketing is just suffused with all kinds of interesting visual material. There are ads, there are packages, there are products, there are games, there are all sorts of things that are interesting visual material to look at, including some of the counterfeit brands or the would-be look-like brands that we looked at earlier. So to think about that, maybe some of you, and here I need to have my assistant for, yeah, there you are, visual material. Maybe some of you remember when United Airlines had an incident where they were dragging a passenger forcibly off of the airplane in order for a pilot that was deadheading from one place to another to occupy his seat, which we'll see in a moment. But it cost United Airlines millions and millions of dollars for the damage that was done to the reputation of the airline in this case. There was another where a guitar was lost, and the guitarist created a song, United Airlines Broke My Guitar, and that also was a catastrophic incident for them. And we're using another computer today, so there'll be no glitches, but as you can see, there's still a bit of a problem. That should be the one. If it's a problem, we'll skip it. Okay, let's skip this first video. But I think some of you may remember the incident. And it was a Chinese man who wanted to go home, and he was screaming, "I must go home, I must go home." And the other passengers were saying, "This is terrible, what are you doing? Why are you dragging him off the plane?" But visual material, even if it's a little TikTok video for 10 seconds, can be impactful. And in this case, obviously this was passed around. So let's go beyond that. These are some stills of dragging him off of the plane. You get the idea. In thinking about what we might look at visually, on the bottom here, you might contrast this Chanel storefront with this Body Shop storefront. Different sorts of colors, different sorts of imagery, different sorts of materials, different sorts of type fonts. All of that is contributing to a different sort of image for those two stores, and of course others as well. On the top, this is all about homes. This was a book by Peter Menzel, and he went to 31 different countries. And he got one family in each country to bring all of their possessions out in front of their home. He not only filmed them, he talked about each of these possessions. This was in Texas, this was in Mongolia, and they're talking about all of these things. They also followed them around from home to school, home to work. They looked at the music, the pets, and in fact they presented it in, at the time, a DVD format, as well as video online, that you could click and say, compare all of the bathrooms in these 31 different countries, compare all of the music in these 31 different countries. And it's interesting to look at the global variations in these common parts of the household. They also recorded their music, recorded people talking about their homes as well as possessions. These are Maasai warriors in Kenya living in different forms of housing. This is a rich Mexican woman, and the videographer was friends with her at the start until they sort of exposed her as a decadent, really lavishly living the big life at the expense of other people in this case. So she wasn't friends any longer. She was persona non grata for having outed or exposed this lifestyle in this particular woman. If we look at another instance, welcome. If we look at another instance, I was in Papua New Guinea once with some Australians, and we were rafting down the Wagyu River, kind of a wild river, in a roadless area. So there was no built-up housing, anything of that sort. And we came upon people going to a sing-sing, which is sort of a joyous ceremony where men and women sit around a campfire facing opposite directions and sort of flirting with one another. And some of them had boar's tusks through their noses, feathers, body paint, but they'd gotten these Western neckties, no shirts, but the Western neckties because they were colorful and interesting, not very traditional perhaps. Here's another shot of some of them. You can see also a jogging t-shirt that made its way into this roadless area. And this drum is called a hoodoo drum, sort of narrow in the middle and wide at the ends. But around the middle was a Cheva's Regal Scotch wrapper, because once again it was colorful. But the striking thing here was, this was opportunistic. We just happened upon these people. That these things seemed to be things out of place. They were from Western culture. They were certainly not traditional Papua New Guinean, as you can see. And well, this was a ceremony that they were going to, an event at any rate. We might also think about audience response rather than looking at the visual stimulus itself. Thinking about how the audience reads this. So how did you read that, those snaps of the Papua New Guineans? We could also think about experiments, surveys even, that traditionally don't have a visual component. We just get lists of statistics, responses, average responses, means and standard deviations to these questions. But as we'll see later on, it's possible to present experimental findings, at least part of them, with the visual as well. This is sort of an awkward, and if we can call up this one, I think will work maybe. This is eye tracking, but it's a fairly clunky eye tracking device. There are now more invisible sorts of eye tracking technologies. This one is going through a supermarket, looking at particular things. Maybe we should have switched to another computer. Right. It may be that you've got them, just got to do a skip ad here. Or maybe that you don't have it. Well, it would be a shame if we have to do all of the visual material without the visuals, without the moving videos at any rate. Okay, I think that's it. No, but it's not showing.
Outside the PowerPoint and chat.
Yeah, it is. You want to switch back to my computer?
Yes,
that one may take a while to load. Ready to go? Now, sorry about this.
How the Burmese tradition.
At any rate, on this slide, you can see the one that says butt brushes at Macy's. The Macy's department store had some merchandise that they wanted to sell. And so they put it in the middle of the aisle in the gondola. And usually merchandise that is in the middle of the aisle sells much more per square foot than merchandise on the shelves or in less accessible places. But they found just the opposite. What are we going to do? Okay. But they found just the opposite, that it was selling less than the merchandise that was in the regular display. And so they looked at the CCTV cameras in the store that are usually there for surveillance. And they observed that what happened was this was a narrow enough aisle that in order to look at merchandise in this table, this gondola, people brushed by and did accidental butt brushes against these people. And it took about 2 of those before they were scared off. They didn't like that feeling of being contacted by anonymous shoppers that were going by. So in that case, they took advantage of the visual that they had. And this is in-store surveillance, but it's also able to be used for, and this is in-store surveillance down here, it's able to be used for marketing research purposes. And in a sinister sort of way, and hopefully this doesn't happen very much, the facial recognition software would allow identification of shoppers if they had been there before. And that could be tied into their past purchase records and what they had bought, and fed back to the salesperson, who could then try to upsell them for more merchandise based on that evidence. Now, as I say, that's kind of sinister. It's not being recognized. It is being recognized, but it's not acknowledged as research that's taking place or a marketing tactic that's taking place. We could also do, maybe, we could also do marketing research with a shop along sort of technique, where we're usually in a shop along mode. We accompany the shopper, and they talk to us back and forth in a natural sort of way as they're shopping and talking about what they're seeing and what they're doing. In this case, oops. In this case, maybe. One more. Let's get verification. I need to get my viewer. But I can do the charger again. But I want to do it. Let's get this. Okay, this is going to show, I think, if this comes up. It worked in rehearsal, I promise. Okay, here's another type of use. There are millions of CCTV cameras around the world. London alone has 8 million CCTV cameras. And so we can use these also for potentially, for potentially marketing research purposes. If we'd like to see what's going on in a given place, we may be able to call up the surveillance cameras in this place. And so we could look at people that are in the Spanish Stairs in Rome, for example, or we could look at people in a ski resort in Samaritz, or we could look at people on the beach in Rio de Janeiro. All of these things are available, usually with much greater speed than this. It doesn't look like this is going to come up very readily either. These last night and this morning came up fine on my computer, but maybe the connection is different here. So let's, something has come up, but it says it failed to open the page. So let's go back to these slides. In terms of interviews that we might do, especially if you're thinking about a presentation in a video format, but even in a PowerPoint format, you might think about using your smartphone as a recording device, not just to record the audio, but to record the video as well. And that could be done for individual interviews as well as group interviews, which are basically focus groups, where you're talking to a group simultaneously, either online or offline, that is face-to-face, or using Zoom or a similar technology. We could also think about using video recording for ethnography. We could begin to look for consumption communities, people that are rallying around a particular brand, people that are fans of a particular sporting club. These are groups that have a presence online and might show up in our ethnography, and we might be able to photograph them or videotape them as well. And there's visual material in blogs, forums, Facebook, that is Meta, etc. I think so. It shows that it's up. These are, they're called Yukon Pie. These were from old Shanghai in the 1930s in China. And these were an initial form of advertising. What they would do would be to give away, and this is Ever-Ready Battery that's advertising, give away a calendar that was for the year. And so people would put this up in their homes so they could tell what the date was. But this is an early version of sex in advertising. This was very controversial at the time. In order to find models, they either used members of their family or they used prostitutes who were willing to have their image shown in a public space like this. There's still some traditional Chinese thing. This is a moon gate. There's a pagoda behind it. There's a lake with lotus blossoms, traditional Chinese things. Now, eventually, the calendar went away, and these became advertising posters with no additional functional use other than the beauty. But people would use these in order to see what the latest version of the Chu Pao or Chung Sung in Cantonese were, and how high the slits were, and what the designs were, and so forth. In other words, these were the equivalent of fashion plates, which were actual plates that were used in France, for example, to show the latest fashions. So this was one way of analyzing early advertising in old Shanghai, which was a modernizing city at the time, comparable to New York. And it still is comparable to New York, but that's as a result of recent revivals under market socialism in China. So we could use historic events. Now this is an exercise. This is an advertisement for a product or service, and I've blanked out the brand name. Tell me what you think the product or service being advertised here might be. Any guesses?
Watch. Apparel.
Say again?
Apparel.
Apparel. And what was one back here?
Watch. Shoes.
Food? Food, really? Watch? Okay, these are interesting guesses. Let me ask you one more question. Would the price of this product be very high or very low?
High.
Is this then a luxury good?
Yes.
Okay, so there's great agreement on this, and you're right, this is Hugo Boss. How could you tell? What told you this was a luxury good without seeing any brand name, any definite product identification or brand?
The color black is sophisticated.
Okay, the color black, this is a lot of black, this is black and white photography, which may be more museum quality. The expressions, tell me about that. What kind of expressions?
So it's more intense and very focused. So it looks like a luxury. I mean, they are from very high society, something of that sort.
Okay, and interestingly, you talk about focus. They're not looking at you. They're looking away from you.
Professor,
Style,
so
glamour,
the man is not bothering about the woman.
Man's not bothering about the woman.
Attitude is there. The
They're not looking at each
masculine
other.
attitude is like more like highlighted in this particular image.
Okay,
It's
so
about self-esteem.
self-esteem. You have high self-esteem.
It's style, glamour, and authoritative.
Glamour, authoritative. They're presenting themselves in a sophisticated manner, for lack of another word. Their hair is slicked back. This is elegance in some way, as we've come to understand it. But we might also look at the background. It looks like there's foliage and a swimming pool. She has a swimming costume on. And so this might be a country club, or it might be a private estate. In looking at, we could also look at where does the eye go first? Probably to their eyes, and then it follows down to her décolletage. It may have his arm going to her face, the shoe is going over toward the brand name. We could look at where the eye goes first, how it travels around here as well. But it's interesting that we came to a consensus. There's also, it's important to look at what is not here. There's not big print saying sale, come on down today, $29.95. It's whispering rather than shouting is the vocabulary that we might use. And so it's interesting. I used to use an earlier version of this ad with earlier fashions for a store called Nicole Dante in San Diego selling clothing. And you can see once again, black and white photography, sort of severe grooming. They're looking away from you rather than directly at the camera, dressed in an elegant sort of fashion. The same sort of thing. I presented this once at University of Illinois, and everyone agreed this was a luxury good, except one woman said, no, I think this is S&M, sadism and masochism, bondage and discipline. And I said, well, you know, sometimes with a projective stimulus, you can tell more about the person than the stimulus itself. But she said, no, don't you see Dante? Dante's Inferno, Visions of Hell. And so that was, she had a logical link, but she was an outlier. She didn't have the same consensus perception as the rest of the group does. Nevertheless, if this over a 30-year period, probably between these two ads, conveys the same sort of thing, it tells us something about stylistically how we represent luxury, how we represent elegance, glamour, and it's nevertheless telling that if we were coding this, rather than coding, and we'll get to coding actually in the next lecture, rather than coding, you know, what is the material that is being shown here, what is the style that's being shown, how high is the belt, what is the hairdo like. Those bits and pieces don't necessarily add up and say glamour. We need to take a more holistic view of what is being conveyed here by this combination of techniques, this combination of parts that are working together. I'll try to make that argument more compellingly later on, but in this case, rather than coding bits and pieces and expecting them to add up to the big picture, I think we need to step back a little bit and say, what is the composite message that's being delivered here? Okay, so what we're dealing with here is sort of a combination of ethnography, photography, and videography. And I think it's fairly evident from the terms themselves, video versus photo, how these differ. I would argue that ethnography at least potentially includes both of these things. It includes images, it includes photography, it includes videography, moving images as well. And that's what we're talking about both as a data collection device and as a presentation device, which is to say, these are things that you might pay attention to. If you're trying to study possessions in people's homes, it would be logical to photograph or even videotape people handling, talking about those possessions, souvenirs, for example. But also as a presentation mechanism, in order to share that and talk about it, it makes sense to have that video or that photography included in the presentation in some way or another, in a PowerPoint presentation where you actually have the ability to quickly switch between video and PowerPoint, or in a video itself, which you're creating, including a film that you might submit to a film festival. So this image, let me just see if I can click on it and make it move, is just a quick shot. That probably was 10 seconds at the most. If you were seeing this and not hearing anything about it or reading anything about it, what sort of story would you create about what's happening here?
A friendly outdoor.
Say again?
A friendly outdoor situation, outdoor meal is being enjoyed.
Okay, outdoor.
A weekend getaway from the corporate life and a couple enjoying their precious time together.
Nice story. This is a weekend getaway from corporate life and they're enjoying the outdoors. What kind of food is this? It's probably not
Light breakfast.
light breakfast, maybe with the
Not healthy.
what was the word?
Not healthy.
Not healthy. Okay, so sweet things here. What about the flowers? Does that tell us anything?
Yeah, couple. Proposal day.
Okay, maybe this is dating. Maybe this
Dating.
is
The boy proposed.
the boy's going to propose. Okay, so he brought the
Already
flowers.
proposed.
Already proposed.
Fancy food.
And with 2 flowers.
Okay. Where does this take place? Is this in India? No.
No.
So this is
England,
Western.
in where?
England.
England? Okay. Somewhere in Europe, somewhere in North America, perhaps. Based on what? Do you know that?
Yes.
Food.
The style of sitting over there, the Indian people like they when they sit properly, then they don't wear those kind of shoes.
Okay. So this is casual clothing. This is unusual food. He is serving her and putting utensils in front of her and so forth. This is a wicker picnic basket, which may
Yes,
say.
basket is also there. Like in India, we don't use this kind of basket
Okay.
for
And
carrying food.
okay, good. You can tell something maybe about the age. You can tell something about how they're dressed, the jewelry that they're wearing, and so forth. In other words, this might be an opening shot, and then you sort of zoom out and see these people and begin to talk about what is this ritual? What is taking place here? And so then you begin to explain, drawing on additional data. You were there, you did this short video clip. And you can talk about who these people were, how they came together, what this event is, whether it is a corporate weekend getaway or a proposal that's taking place, and so forth. So we need words to explain what's happening here. The video by itself is probably not sufficient. So we might use a voiceover, and that's sometimes called the voice of God, interpreting what's happening here. Or if possible, we might allow the people to speak for themselves. I'll show you a video, hopefully I'll show you a video in a little bit, actually in the second period, that is looking at people with facial differences in 5 different continents in this project that I think I mentioned earlier. But it's entirely spoken by the people themselves. We don't have any voiceover. We have some subtitles only because they're foreign languages and we're translating it. But for the people that are speaking English, We don't use that at all. So what we're focusing on here is videography, what it is, how to do it, how it can be used. And this is obviously an old film camera rather than the contemporary digital equivalent. So I want to show you 3 examples with luck favoring us that are either from student projects or from Association for Consumer Research film festivals that I've talked about. But basically, these are presentations that are done using video clips. They could be drawing on YouTube content and more, or we could upload to YouTube ourselves or to other online presences. I mentioned before there's a site called Films by Consumer Researchers that is a little bit dormant right now, but it's been used to upload some of the films from the ACR Film Festival, and that might be useful for research purposes or for showing it in class. And so this first one, I'm sorry it is in this one, these two are overlapping a bit, is a film I did with Lina Cavasolo, and she is from Turkey, and we came together on this project that was spurred by the fact that her husband had something called Bell's palsy, that he woke up one morning and half of his face was paralyzed. And so he spoke in a different manner, he sounded different, slurred speech. He stayed home from work, he didn't think he'd be able to go to work like that. At one point, because this lasted weeks and weeks, he even said, "You may want to divorce me. I'm not the same person that you married." So he was very self-conscious about it. It made her curious about facial differences. And we made this 15-minute film that hopefully I'm going to bring up for you to see. That's encouraging. I think we have a slow internet connection here. Anyone that's online, are you having a slow connection today? It's the fog. Let's blame it on the fog. Safari can't connect to the server. It's not connected? The show's not connected. Is that the link? Oh.
5G, no?
Yeah.
4G.
4G, I don't see a 4G option. No, I don't think we're showing it. This one? That one? That's correct. 8567302. Could not be joined. So should I go back to the other one? Or it is still on the other one? We need a password for this one though too. Okay. No. It's not asking for a password. I want to see what that is. You want to go back and try that one? This one? Again, it looks like we're connected. Okay. All right, I think we're going to make progress here. Et voila, I think we have something we can show.
What is it like having facial difference? It's been a journey that I'm going to have to take you back all the way to the beginning for. So when I was 8 years old, I was first diagnosed with an illness called Bell's palsy, which is characterized by paralysis of one side of your face with an unknown cause. And for me, it has always occurred on this side of my face, this right-hand side of my face.
Hi, I'm Chelsea. I am 34 years old. I was born with a rare condition known as Sturge-Weber syndrome that affects probably 1 in 50,000 people. Also, I was born with a large port wine stained birthmark on the left side of my face that also includes glaucoma.
Treacher Collins is a birth syntax, a couple key chromosomes genetically, craniofacial defects, which can include microtia, I have prosthetic ears, eyesight, hearing, I don't have cheekbones, tear ducts, all sorts of craniofacial deformities that are different. And of course, that's something you're born with. And of course, the advantage for me is it makes you extremely memorable. No one has ever forgotten my face.
Ben de tıp biraz hastayım. Sol gözümde, sol yüzümde oluşmaktadır. Kahverengi lekelerim de var. Yüzde çinlenmeler de mevcut. Ya da omurilikte kaymalar neden
Eu cresci sendo uma criança diferente, mas eu não me lembro qual foi o momento que eu percebi que eu era diferente das outras crianças. Eu acho que principalmente isso aconteceu por ter muito suporte da minha família e principalmente da minha mãe, que sempre me deixou muito confortável em casa para falar sobre isso.
Sure, from when my twin sister and I were babies to toddlers, I can't even tell you which one is me. We looked that much alike. And then we had surgery, and like now, we don't really look alike anymore. We look very different. For me, I think it was particularly traumatic to have my sister go through it with me because not only was I experiencing this, but I had to watch someone experience it too.
I already had the issues with being different with how I looked. I didn't really have that social life. I didn't have that date for grad, I didn't have that date for dances. It was segregation, there was clubs against me, and it was called the Chelsea Haters Club.
Growing up with birthmark was challenging in some aspects. Primarily, the most difficult part was random people approaching me or my family unexpectedly just to know what happened to my face. And it wasn't a general curiosity of if I was okay or wanting to learn more. A lot of the times it came from a really negative place.
Yeah, so I was born in 1984, and so the knowledge about Treacher Collins syndrome was very new. There was really no community, there was no Facebook. So growing up, I would get, what's wrong with your face? For me, I always fell back on self-deprecating humor to make light of the situation.
So when I met Dwayne, I did not know anything about Treacher Collins syndrome. I just knew his face looked different. And I just realized that everything that I liked about him, about his personality and his character, all of that came from his life experience growing up with Treacher Collins syndrome.
So sometimes it's like being Mr. Potato Head, and I go to a little water, go to bed, and take myself apart, take my hearing aid off.
I was called a deformed girl by like a group of jerk kids and stuff like that. And the stares, people, even like adult people, just still stare at me. Like if I'm, you know, or...
Growing up, I was, I didn't want to come out of the house. I didn't want to do too much anything. I hated going out in public. If I went out in public, I would wear a hoodie. I don't care if it was the summertime, but I wanted to hide my ear, try to hide as much as possible. And that was me coping with it. But then I had a Another dangerous coping method, which I learned that was dangerous as I was growing up, was now that I'm older, I said rather, I had friends or people that I thought were my friends, but just for the sake of having a friend, I would let them treat me in kind of way, or just, allow myself to be the joke all the time, just for the sake of having friends. We're like, well, at least I got friends, I'm not alone.
But the question, what is wrong with you? Fundamentally, in the question itself, it is asking what is wrong, wrong being a negative, bad thing, with you. And in this case, what is wrong with me? And there's nothing wrong with me. Yes, my face may not function the way that other people's does, but does that mean that the way my face is bad, wrong, negative? I don't think so, and I don't think it's okay to put that on someone.
Perguntas que mais me incomodam são perguntas que dão a entender que eu deveria tirar a minha pinta, tipo, perguntando por que você não tira, ou olhares excessivos também, porque isso me dá a sensação que a minha pinta é algo ruim.
My husband, people would look at him, look at my baby bump, and just be aghast. So they expected me to just be like the Hunchback of Notre Dame and hide out in the basement somewhere,
Kaçanlar da var tabii ki de. Yanına, toplu taşıma aracında yanına oturduğunuz insanın sizin yanına kalkması veya yanına oturmaması, bu hastalığın bulaşıcı olduğu düşüncesiyle, yani bir kişiyle tokalaşamıyorsunuz bile, yani elinizi tutmak bile istemiyor ya da sizi öpmek istemiyor, sarılmak istemiyor ya da çocuğunun gözünü kapatması, çocuğunu sizden saklaması. Mesela bana gelen en kırıcı kelimelerden biri şuydu: maymuna benziyorsun.
It got dark, it got scary. There was times I didn't want to leave the house. The whispering, the ogling by grown adults is what drives me nuts. I've had people actually come up and ask me if it's infectious. I've had people ask if my eye is going to pop out of my head and if I need medical assistance. It's gotten to the point though I've actually told people, if you're going to stare, either ask for my autograph or take the damn picture.
It does cause me anxiety in a mild form. I do wear an eye patch daily, and as much as I might put myself in the media and talk about various bits and pieces, naked as I call it, but if somebody should come to my front door like a postman who I might see every day and rings the doorbell, my first thought is, how can I cover myself up, because I don't want to go looking where I look. And I found my safe place with my eye patch on, and that's how I face the world every day. But that even comes with its own challenges, because there's not many people walking around with eye patches either, so it's a no-win situation.
If you go to a movie and you never ever see someone that looks like you, like no one is, unless they're, I don't know, the bad guy, that's the only person who's ever disfigured or has any type of scarring. Even in The Lion King, what's the evil lion's name? Scar. There's that subliminal messaging from the time we're very, very little that these facial differences are bad, they're evil, they're not normal.
Facial differences in media, it's like a villain, that's pretty much it. It's rare that you see somebody with a facial difference who is like the hero, unless it's a story like Wonder, which is a beautiful story, but still focuses like 100% on his facial difference. I think it would be really cool to, see it just be like a love story or like a superhero or something, just a regular story.
You don't see someone with facial difference on the cover of magazines or in movies or in any kind of positive beauty light. And I'd love to see that change, because I think that would definitely help people feel more confident about themselves when they have visible difference.
Hard growing up when you are society, movies, everything portrays anyone with a facial difference as a monster.
Were or are there times where I tried to hide my birthmark? I have never tried to hide the fact that I have vascular birthmark. Even when I'm wearing full face of makeup like I am today, I always am the first person to talk about it in a room, or if I see a stranger in public with a vascular birthmark, I tell them and I show them photos that I have on my phone. There are definitely times where I leaned into makeup to lessen the appearance of my birthmark, but never to hide it or act like I didn't have one. Makeup has been a wonderful tool for me to feel in control of other people and their staring or their questions or their comments towards me. But I've never used makeup to completely remove or act like I did not have a birthmark.
আমি খুব শান্ত ভালোবাসি, আমি সবসময় কাঁদবো। তো আমার এই জিনিসটা ঘটে যাওয়ার পর থেকে আমার এই ঠোঁটটা পুরো পুড়ে গলে গেছিল। তো যাওয়ার পরে আমি খেতেই পারতাম না, গলা খাবার খেতাম, আমার গলায় দুটো ফুটো ছিল, তো ওই লকডাউনের আগে অপারেশন করে গলায় ফুটো দুটো বন্ধ করেছি। তো করার পরে আমি বলি আমার ডাক্তারকে বলছি আমার মুখটা কি করা যায় দেখো, আমি একটু শান্ত ভালোবাসি, আমি যেন একটু লিপস্টিক আরে করতে পারি। তো বলছে এই হাতটাও উঠতো না, গালে হাত খেতে পারতাম না, তখন আমি হাতটার প্রতি অতটা খেয়াল ছিল না, যে আমার গালে না ওঠে না উঠে, আমার বয় আছে, আমার মা আছে, আমাকে খাইয়ে।
Não, eu nunca tentei esconder minha pinta de nascença, nunca tentei fazer uma maquiagem que pudesse escondê-la também. Muito pelo contrário, eu já maquiei ela mais para enfeitá-la. O tema da maquiagem era galáxia, para dizer que todos nós temos o universo dentro de nós. Então a maquiagem foi mais para enfeitar e não nunca para cobrir. Muito pelo contrário, eu gosto muito de ter a minha pinta.
But while going through, my makeup routine, just like any other human that applies makeup, I really just want to enhance my natural beauty and feel beautiful and confident in my own skin.
I've gone from hating wearing makeup, hating looking in the mirror because of what I looked like, to now loving both of those things.
I'm just starting to warm up to the idea of self-image and being comfortable with yourself and your skin. And I don't know, I've never really felt comfortable.
Surround yourself with others that look like you. I think a lot of people don't realise how big the facial difference community is, and having that community has been life-changing for me in finding myself, my self-confidence, my self-worth, and my purpose.
It's been something that I've been kind of self-conscious about. It's something that I've more recently started talking more openly about and trying to connect with other people with facial differences and try to make it less of a sort of stigmatized thing, make it just more acceptable, try to put our faces out there more so people won't be as inclined to stare or feel the need to ask invasive questions. I felt alone with people I've met online, through Instagram, TikTok kind of thing, meeting other people with facial differences has been a really big game changer in a positive way.
Treat me like you want to be treated. I don't want you to ignore that I have a facial difference, and that's just like saying, well, when I see you, I don't see the facial difference. Yes, you do. You see it. We can talk about it. That's how and the more you say you don't see it, there'll never be change. Another reason I don't want any sympathy, I spent a lot of my life feeling sorry for myself. So I don't need anybody else to do it for me. I'm over that phase of feeling sorry. This is my life. I'm making a choice to embrace who I am, finally embrace me as a person. And I want you to do the same.
Aslında ben kendimce çok benimsedim. Topluma bu şekilde çıkmaya çalışıyorum. Ne de bir bireyim ve bu birey olarak toplumda var olmaya çalışıyorum.
It is, again, it's a huge social taboo. And maybe one of the final big pushes that we really need to be highlighting the fact that people with different faces aren't different people. They've just gone through something which you haven't. And that sort of respect rather than to mock.
We need to start looking at disability and disfigurement like they look at gender equality and race equality. I just think it's time that we're seen as being a part of the population.
name, my age, my favorite color, my height, my sign, do I have a lover? What's my nationality? Here's some things that inspire me. My favorite food, my current mood, and my shoe size is my favorite TV show and my favorite animal. There's much more to know that we'll cover as we grow. I've got this many tattoos, and yes, all these things are true. So tell me a little something about you.
So love, it is a river that drowns.
I won't go through all the credits, but let me say a few things about making this film. We started during COVID, and so we were doing, well, first of all, we had difficulty getting cooperation, getting cooperation of NGOs, whom we went to try to source some of our participants. And they said, no, you don't have any facial differences yourself. We don't think you would have sufficient empathy and contact with these people. So we're going to not give you any of our members, any of our participants. I tried to argue that aging is a facial difference, but they wouldn't buy that. So at any rate, the way that we got people was to go online, find people that had a social media presence and contact them. And we got a pretty good cooperation rate, in fact quite good, I would say about 80%. And so we started talking to these people, we got great cooperation in interviewing them, and we also came back and asked most of them, would you do a couple of things? Would you show yourself getting ready in the morning? Would you talk about whether you try to ever hide or not disclose your facial configuration by wearing a mask during COVID, for example, and glasses and so forth. And we said, if you will, please show us some of the either video or still photos from your childhood and growing up. And they've also given us permission to use their social media clips that they had put up. So we got great cooperation. We created the film with them, cooperatively, collaboratively. We showed it at a film festival and won the first place. And we had two people who were so engaged with this project that they actually came from neighboring states in the U.S. The film festival, which was in Seattle, to be there for the opening premiere and Q&A that followed. And so it was really gratifying to see that amount of cooperation. Many of them, we took some photos, or they took some photos and videos of the film festival and the award, and put those up online, and that was passed around and got a lot of attention. And then the agencies who turned us down initially began to come to us and say, can we cooperate with you in the future? And we kind of impishly said, no, thank you. So at any rate, we're continuing this research, and some of the people, I guess the backstory that we have in a couple of print articles that we don't have in the video itself, is these people had gone through painful surgeries, cosmetic surgeries, and also laser treatments to lighten their facial discoloration. And they eventually all said, enough, I don't want to do that anymore, I am who I am, I don't want to have this treated as a medical problem. The doctors would say, this is a problem, we can fix it. And they would say, no, it's not a problem. We heard a little bit of that from Chelsea, one of the women in the video. So that's sort of how this transpired. We did not see this as just trying to analyze what was wrong with these people and how they were treated in society, but rather to make this an advocacy film, sometimes categorized as cooperative, collaborative, and also participatory action research is another term that the PAR that goes under. Comments or questions that you have on the video?
What
was basically the research question behind this particular research which you got back to?
Good question. It was, how do these people cope? What are their coping mechanisms? How do they regard the hostility that they face in society? And because of the way that we gathered data for this, we did one paper that we called How to Make a Film Without a Camera, because we were capturing the material online and social media and clips that these people sent us. But we sort of changed as we went along. We were initially thinking, how do these people adapt to or struggle in society, and how do they face the stares, the ridicule? You might have heard that there was in high school, which is usually the worst time, Chelsea Haters Club that this one woman had. And even the friends of these people were treated badly because they were friends of these people. So it rubbed off somehow. And you might have seen toward the end, there was an Indian acid attack victim. We had 4 like that we were looking at, who had different sorts of stories than those that had a congenital problem. The man who had one eye had gone blind after a cancer operation, took about half of his face, and his face was reconstructed. But at one point you could look in his eye socket and see out his mouth that there was that much emptiness there where there used to be fleshy material. So this was a compelling project, but it was one that was very gratifying in terms of the amount of cooperation that we got from these people and the amount of participation. So it wasn't just our film, it was their film as well, or our film together. Other comments, questions?
So, Professor?
Down here and then back there.
So, most of such videos, so did you face any discontent from them that they were not aware where this video will be used? Now that you have won the best video and you are getting popularity, you in the sense anybody who has made this video is getting popularity at their cost. So there was one documentary from India, Elephant Whisperers, which won many awards. So the people who worked in Tamil Nadu for that, they felt they were left out. So at their cost, everybody else is gaining all the popularity and commercial benefits.
Yeah, a good question. We did a 2-stage consent process. We asked them, can we capture in video this interview that we're doing with you? And then after we had done that, we said, now you know what's going on. Tick the boxes of how we can use this. We can only show it to the researchers. We could show this to a class of students. We could show this at a conference. We can broadcast this on television, put it up on the internet. And so both by virtue of that 2-stage consent procedure and by virtue of having them work with us and create this, all but 2 of 19 people that we had here said yes, it's fine to, unlike normal consent where we disguise faces and we disguise names, you can use my real face and you can use my real name. We didn't do that, we just used first names. But it was a procedure that we didn't put this up online. They put it up online. And so it was, and they put up other self-disclosing videos of themselves online in many cases as well. So we did as best we could to safeguard the privacy and to go with the wishes of these people and not be exploitative. And the fact that these agencies came back to us after they saw what we had done would be further, at least somewhat evidence that we were not violating anyone's sense of what they wanted to do in terms of promoting themselves. But at each stage, we showed them what we were doing. We got their participation, and that was another way to ensure that we were doing something that was consistent with what they thought was appropriate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I could find like it's talking about more of body positive, like how the people are adjusting themselves to the society, how the society is also accepting those kind of, we say it is deformed, but they are in their own shape. So that is actually a kind of extending oneself towards a kind of the environment they belong. I could find out the company like Unilever, Vaseline, and like another brand called Unilever's brand, that is Pond's. They have used this kind of body positivity their advertising to talk about the real beauty, and they're trying to talk about, yes, we are considering all the people who are having some sort of difficulties. They are all having the inclusive kind of attention, or you can say they are part of our society. So that can also extended towards like the product or the like service brand image.
Yeah.
So how they are looking at the consumer, and that can be tested, or the I could find there is a lot of things hiding over there in terms of theory development. How the people are moving forward to accept themselves as well as the overall circumstances they live in, and how the corporate people also indulge into like promoting that sort of.
Yeah, we have another paper actually that is analyzing that movement to be more inclusive in advertising and product promotion. And besides Unilever, Gucci has a Down syndrome spokesperson. Barbie dolls have come out with vitiligo Barbie and amputee Barbie and a wheelchair Barbie and so forth. Now we have a paper analyzing that in terms of people's reactions to it. There's a new film out called A Different Man, which is a fictionalized film, but it begins with a documentary trying to say, how do you treat people with facial differences in the office place? And then it uses some real people and people that have real facial differences and some people that have merely cosmetic facial differences for the movie, and those get entangled. There's another film that was mentioned here called Wonder, where a young boy goes through school and is bullied, but initially, as some of these people did, befriend the bully. The biggest bully becomes their biggest pal or friend defender. And in that particular case, it was controversial because the boy that played the Wonder did not have a facial difference. He was merely using prosthetics and makeup to have that be created. So you're right, body positivity and other related movements are beginning to promote people with facial differences, as well as neurodiverse people. The Down syndrome people not only look different, but also have a different autism spectrum disorder as well. So it's tying into perhaps a groundswell of movement, but I think it has far to go. That normally these people are not talked to. As a person said, talk to me about it. We can understand each other. Now, ask me about it, and I'll be glad to tell you what's wrong. But don't try this, as some people did, take photos without acknowledging that they were taking a photo of the person in order to show. One of these women had, and I'm sorry to go on about this, but she had her material that she put up online taken and then reinterpreted as a victim of torture, and all it was clickbait basically for getting people to go on to different parts of this made-up story. And it had a million or more pass-along followers in that case. So, yeah, there's a movement forward, one step forward, two steps back in some cases, or two steps forward, one step back. But progress hopefully is being made. Any others?
So another acid burn in India, there is a like phenomena like we have already observed, that is the acid burn is the common case in India. So one of the leading cosmetic brand, they have also used this particular phenomena to connect with the society that yes, they are with us. So and we are with them. So that also creates a positive vibes for the particular brand.
There's still a problem in the medical community who have largely this view of ableism, that everyone should be up to the standard of being able, and they're broken otherwise, and we will fix them. And the facially different community is rejecting that. They say that I'm not broken, and you heard that from one of these women. I don't think I'm a different person. I may look different, but I'm the same person. There's another hand over. Yeah, please.
Sir, generally these questions are very sensitive in nature to ask. So there are chances, I guess, that while we are asking these questions, this might trigger their trauma or what they have faced in past, and they might face anxiety or they might become vulnerable. They could also start crying. So how to handle such situations that we are asking the question, but we are not making them relive their past trauma?
Yeah, we're saying what we're interested in is your story, and we'd like to hear from you what your life has been like. And we again use some general, what is your education, what is your background, where do you come from, some grand tour sorts of questions. But most of them realize that we're coming to them because they're facially different. It's not a surprise to them. And reliving their trauma was, part of their backstory. They had to tell how they had acquired or what their childhood was like. And it did not seem to be traumatic. Most of them wished, in fact, that they could have more people talk to them about what had happened to them in order to create understanding. And of course, they had gone through all sorts of suffering, both socially and physically. And so they were, in a sense, at a stage where they had realized and come to accept who they are. If they were in the midst of their trauma, I think it would have been more difficult. If we had gone to the man with one eye as he was going through his surgeries, I think it would have been a different sort of case. It would have taken a special person to allow someone else in that case, when he is not certain if he's going to live or die, or what sort of future he might have. But you're right, for some people, including us, the researchers, we could both face post-traumatic syndrome for going through this ourselves. And I've had a tragedy in my family recently where I could suffer from this, but I'm trying to get around it. So, these are all very valid sorts of questions, and if you're dealing with a sensitive topic, you've got to believe in it and believe that you can tell a compelling story that is consistent with the people that you're talking to and what they might do in terms of self-presentation. And so, yeah.
And how tough it has been to convince the IRB?
That was an interesting story because we had two different universities and we had to get IRB approval from both of them, and we wanted to get approval for showing people's faces and for disclosing their first names. And so we went through several rounds with the IRBs, but in general they were helpful. This is how to improve this design, and this is how you might be sure that you're getting informed consent. And so once we explained what we were doing, what the purpose was, we got the IRBs to sign on. So I was very happy with that as a result. Okay, yeah, one more.
Because have you find any case where this type of people have been rejected by the family, but they have the same positive mindset as they have grown up?
Yeah, in fact, we got this with a couple of the acid attack victims whose family, not the family that they married into, but their birth family, rejected them, didn't want to have anything to do with them. And part of it was a blame the victim sort of mentality, that if you got acid attack or acid thrown at you, you must have deserved it. Whereas that was not the case with these people. It had been a jilted lover in most cases. We're saying, if I can't have you, no one will have you. And so it was really sad to see that some of these people's families rejected them. In the one case, I don't know if you could hear that the one woman was saying, the doctors can take skin grafts from my body to put on, from my hands to put on my face. My mother can feed me, and she was very supportive, in fact. So family support would be where this all starts. And the Brazilian woman that had the black facial marking said that she had a very supportive family, and she could talk about this at home, and it was a comfortable sort of situation for her. And in most other cases, the family was also supportive. But there were some, and acid attack victims among them, who said that my family more or less disowned me in this case. Of course, there's more to these stories as well, that it's not just the appearance. There are other things that may have led up to that and so forth. So it's more complex than that. But that's a good question, good observation. Okay, shall we go on? Part of what we're trying to say, I guess we've got about 15 minutes left. I'm not going to show you another long video like that, but here's another example. If you're an experimentalist, this is, usually we think of experiments as distance. We don't want the people to be biased or influenced by us in any way, and so it's as much hands-off as possible. And so it would be unusual for an experimenter to show the subjects of the experiments or their homes or where they lived. We do that sort of thing all the time in qualitative research, but in quantitative research, that's almost unheard of. Oops, I was trying to go to this one. Let's see if I can pull this up. No. At any rate, this is an experiment. Yeah. And you can see, I'll just show you the introduction to this.
Would you be willing to pay more for products simply because you perceive them to be far away?
So does distance make a difference? Advertisements are supposed to grab the consumer's attention, and ultimately, they should make the consumer buy the product.
But how are products presented to appeal to the consumer? Some ads play with distance.
Distance affects the way an object or event is pictured in our minds. When distance is large, we tend to think in more abstract terms, focusing on the big picture and why we prefer things. In contrast, when distance is small, our thinking is more concrete. We focus on details and how we will use things.
For example, we can think of an action such as skiing very abstractly, as having fun racing down a hill, or very concretely, as balancing weight from one foot to the other. The link between the level of abstractness of the mental picture and distance was first described by the...
So you can see in this case they're setting up their experiment by talking about real-life situations. It wasn't a field experiment either, it was a lab experiment that they went to eventually. But they introduced it and presented their findings in film, which would suggest that it's not just qualitative research that might be processed or presented in this particular way. This one is about cosmetics, and again, I'll just show you a little bit of it. But
humans, cities. Today, more than 50% of humans
it's okay.
and environment sexual needs. Of course, we can experience street differences here and there, but cities provide a similar experience all around the world. Lights, buildings, streets, vehicles, buses, pedestrians, restaurants, food stores, clothes stores, and cosmetic stores. Cosmetic brands are now part of the common landscape, which shows something is very, very important to us, ourselves. In this crowded environment, lost in a sea of people, caring about our personal identity is more important than ever. We want to take care of ourselves for good, and it's not always easy. But in all those products, we found one that is extensively used by a broader and more diversified range of people than we could expect.
So they're going to go in this research and talk about, go back to my slides, and talk about different cosmetics that people might use and contrast particularly to Body Shop and Kiehl's. And so this was how they set it up as sort of a grand view. At any rate, let's talk a little bit about your equipment, how you might go about creating a video. I indicated, I think I brought it along. At any rate, with a camera, with a smartphone, you have a device that's going to get great quality, potentially get great quality video. I'm sure I brought it along. Yes, I did. This is there's two problems that you often face. One is shaky cam, and that's hard with a phone to hold still, even though there's image stabilization built in. And the other is bad sound. I think I mentioned earlier that the best way to improve video is to improve audio. And to get the mic off the camera, this is a little device that looks like this on the lower right that allows you to connect it to your phone remotely and connect the lapel mic to someone who's talking and to get much better sound as a part of it. In terms of the shaky cam, you could use a tripod, of course, or you could use a gimbal, a sort of steady cam like the one in the upper right there. These have come down in price. They're reasonably affordable, and it makes a big difference, especially if you're moving and trying to move with the person that you're interviewing. They're not essential, but they improve the quality of the video that you may get. There's also a free app for smartphone, for iPhones called Final Cut Camera app that allows you to have much greater control of the camera settings, let's just leave it at that, as well as to monitor the sound level and to get much better information if you're able to use it. Also, headphones or AirPods are another way to monitor sound, and you can have an SSD card attached to your phone in order to record all this video without loading up your camera overloading your camera with too much information. So, let me just show you one final hopeful clip. Maybe show both of these. Let's see if we have time. Well, now I'm seeing it here, but I'm not seeing it on the camera. Or on the, you're not seeing it. Let's see if I can switch. No, I'm not seeing that. Okay, there it is. And let me just see if I can bring this up. Well, let me just play it like this because I think it will play. Okay, so let me play this clip. I think. Looks like there's a new filmmaker in town, is what he went on to say. Did you see anything unusual about this film?
It's like a game.
It's like a
video game.
Like a video game? Okay.
So there was no crowd on the streets?
There was no crowd? No other people in the background?
Not
Okay.
many. We can see only 2 or 3 people and rest of the police. Seems like some restrictions imposed in the city, like curfew situation.
Okay, this
There
whole
was
thing
fire
was
also.
AI generated, with voice commands. There were no actors, there were no filmmakers, there were no videographers. This was entirely AI voice commands telling it to create a 1980s gritty New York heist scene with a few other details, and it was able to do all of that. I may be able to...
King of video.
Yeah, there's the king of video part. I may be able to show you the other part of this. Let's just see, we got a double look on this, which also illustrates, yeah, fade out. Gotta get some sound here. This is also AI generated.
Ghosts passing through. I've carried my heart in a suitcase, left pieces of it scattered in every corner of the world. Love, I've had it, lost it, missed it, destroyed it. Life, lived it to the bone until it hollowed me out. I spent so much time looking down at the strings, the road, the bottle, and forgotten the gun. The show's over and the encore's a lie, but hey, time slips through your fingers faster than you think. You gotta live it loud, low, flat world might end tomorrow. Because when the lights dim and the curtain falls, we all simply just fade out.
So that was another case of AI-generated material. There was no real man that looks like that. This was not a real story. This was entirely AI-generated and created. So we have 3 minutes left. We're not going to have time to do this exercise, but you might want to try this within your group. Imagine that you're trying to present your data. Talk about what your research question is, agree on that. How might you use video to collect data and or present findings? How might you divide the workload? How will you do, what will you do? Anything in an Indian language versus English? And how will you divide the work over the next 2 days? And so thinking visually, how are you going to put this all together? What might you do? How might you go about creating film? How might you go about using PowerPoint with some visual material? And what are you going to do for the project that you're going to be presenting on Friday? We've got today and tomorrow to wrestle with that. And so begin to think about projects, your plans, and the use of video. We have 2 minutes left. Questions on any of the things we've gone over?
It's very interesting because it's a kind of curiosity, out of curiosity this question has come. So, do you think that the way we are writing research paper or it's more of a text? So do you believe or foresee that way in future the instead of writing a research paper, it would be more of a kind of documentary video would be more popular, or it would be also recognized by the different international journals?
Yes. Their Journal of Consumer Research, for example, has published at least 1 video on their website relating to a paper as well. It's a video by Rob Cosnitz about Burning Man, which is this festival out in the desert of Nevada each year. And so you could look up his paper on Burning Man and also connect and see the video as a part of that. There is a journal called Journal of Journal of Customer Behavior, that is now specializing in videos and photo and art essays and creative videos. It's an interesting journal if you might want to have a look at it. It's sort of reformulated. It's speaking expressively, it's speaking to a broad audience, and it's doing some innovative things. There are other journals that have special video issues. We've done a couple of issues of consumption markets and culture that were featuring people's videos. This was back in the day when we distributed a DVD with, now of course you can just have a link to a website, and it's much easier than that. So yes, I think it's increasingly feasible to present it to a class for a class project. I think would be well received. Most university people are receptive to images, and you can do things with sound and images that you can't do with written words, and so I think it brings things alive. Or think about a combination of both. Have a written version and a film version that reference one another.
Complementing that.
Yeah, complementary. Yeah, I think there's more and more possibilities of that sort. And of course, you could do it and put it up online as well on YouTube with films by consumer researchers that I've mentioned. In order to get to the latter one, you need to have been accepted into a film festival. It's the equivalent of having been reviewed by a journal, and so that's the ticket or the price of admission.
Many journals have started audiovisual abstracts.
Abstract videos, yes, you're right. To have a teaser sort of for the thing with a short video, you're right, there are journals that have started doing that. So that's another opportunity for creativity.
Journal of customer behavior is having poems, beautiful poems.
Yes, beautiful poems as well. The Consumer Culture Theory Conference has a poetry session as a part of it. They have video as a part of it. They have an art installation as a part of it, or art installations plural. So I think that possibility of more visual material is increasing. Just a preview of coming attractions after the tea break. We'll look at coding, and we'll look at the possibility of coding visual material and oral audio material without transcribing it, so that you push particular code and it links to the video directly, so that you don't have that loss of a transcription when you're turning everything that's happening into just words, just what the person says. This is also how they say it, and the visual component of that. Okay, let's take a tea break, and we'll come back and look at